Hey guys, and welcome back to Tennis 360, the podcast where we talk about all things tennis. My name's Anthony Hirsch.
And I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
Welcome back to the podcast. It's the 10th podcast that we're doing for Tennis 360, number 10. And in this one, we're going to be talking about Vienna Basel that happened on the ATP side, a couple of 500 tournaments. And then we're also going to be talking about the WTA Elite Trophy that happened just this week as well. It was a great week of tennis. Vienna had an amazing final, one of the best matches of the year between Jannik Sinner and Daniel Medvedev. Absolutely brutal rallies from both sides. Both guys absolutely pummeling the ball back and forth. Did you get a chance to see it, and what were your thoughts on that?
Yes, I chimed in about halfway through the second set, and it was such a good match, as you say. I think it's a contender for one of the best 3-set matches we've seen this year, for sure. And I think what you said is very true in terms of this was kind of the first matchup between Sinner and Medvedev where Sinner won by beating Medvedev from the baseline. And I think that was, testament to some of the key things that he's improved on this season. The serve, playing with more angles on the forehand, and kind of being able to break down the Medvedev backhand pattern a little bit better than he has in the past. I think he abandoned the serve and volley strategy pretty early on in the match. When I went back and watched the highlights, I kind of saw him give it a try the first couple games, and then it seemed to just kind of be a backup plan after the fact. But yeah, one of the first times we've seen Sinner beat Medvedev from the baseline, which was impressive.
Yeah. It was really good. I think that he was, although he did not play the serve and volley as much after the kind of first part of it, I did think that he was still using really impressive shot decisions, shot in, shot out. Like he knew exactly what he wanted to do at every point. He was still using a little bit of variety, not as much serving volleying, but he still came into net quite a lot behind some really big forehands, and he won 34 out of 45 points at net, which is a stat from the match. Sinner was really, really impressive. And and also this week, he's just been serving incredible all week. He served 73% first serves in the match. That's versus 67% from Medvedev. And for the first time in his career, he served over 80% first serves in first couple of matches this week. And that's he did it twice. So, Sinner's been serving amazing. I mean, everything about him has just been really impressive. And I'd also say the mental aspect of how he kind of, against Rublev was down 5-2 in the first set and then just kind of buckled down and figured out a way to win that in a tight first set. And against Medvedev as well, which was so topsy-turvy throughout the whole match. So, and winning his third straight tiebreaker versus Daniil, which is so tough, especially with a server like Medvedev. And the crazy tiebreaker that was. So yeah, one of the best matches, and Sinner's only improving constantly. And it was just amazing to see how he was hitting from both sides, because it was like Sinner was so consistent, and Medvedev is consistent as well. He was just a wall, but Sinner was like a wall that can also punch back. And that was kind of how I felt about the match.
Yeah, and I think he also changed directions really well in this match too. Like, I think he has more control over his ground strokes than he did even at the beginning of this year. And kind of like we've said before, I think what's so impressive about Sinner is his willingness to make the adjustments and take a step back to take a couple steps forward. So I think, we saw him win points from the baseline with really good shot selection and being committed to constantly changing direction. He really had Medvedev on the ropes, and it's not usual that we would see Medvedev kind of cramping up before his opponent does. And so for Sinner to outlast him physically there, especially in the third set, was another sign of the improvements he's been making off court. And then lastly, to what you said about his serving percentages since the US Open, he's put on some of his best serving displays we've seen from him ever. And part of that is testament to the adjustment he made in his serve over the summer. If you take a look at him adjusting from a platform-based to a pinpoint-based serve, you can also see some adjustments in where his racket head position is at the point of the ball toss. So a lot of those things now coming good for him. And I think if one in general, as a tennis player, takes one thing away from watching Sinner is that, it's worth spending the time to go back and correct some, technical challenges that you might be having in your game in order to have long-term gain. And the fact that he's so young and now, figuring out what's been a really tricky head-to-head for him with Medvedev, in the past, and now getting 2 straight wins against him in tricky finals on Medvedev's preferred surface as well. I just think it bodes really well for the future for Sinner. And the only negative that I could see in this situation is I hope he hasn't peaked too early in this indoor hard court swing, because I'd love to see him make a good run this week at the Masters and put in a good shift at the Nito ATP Finals, which is in Italy. I'm sure he'll want to do well there. So hopefully he still has some juice left after what's been a busy post-US Open season for him.
Yeah. About Paris, it's going to be interesting how he performs, because after Beijing, he had a great run in Beijing, beating Alcaraz Medvedev in 4 straight sets. But then once he got to Shanghai, he was just, he won a match or 2 matches, but then he looked exhausted coming into that. So I wouldn't be surprised if something similar happens in Shanghai. Something similar happens in Paris, especially with how physical that final was, to be honest, against Medvedev. I think that especially in Turin, I think he could make a great run at it. It's going to be interesting to see how it comes. But I think with Sinner, the big thing for Sinner is that he's really kind of trusted the process. He knew that he wasn't going to be a player like Alcaraz that had it all figured out right from the start. He's had so many different problems, whether it be mental, whether it be physical, like you said, whether it be technical. And I think he's somebody that has been willing to make, what would you say, kind of sharp decisions and sharp risks, tough risks, such as after 2022 Australia lost a brutal straight sets match to Tsitsipas, he fired his whole team. And that was something that was kind of big from Sinner. He got Darren Cahill on board. He fired his coach, who had been with him for 7 or 8 years. That's the type of thing with Sinner that is very impressive. He's changed his serving position about 7-8 times. Now it's finally worked. So there are just a couple of things that really impressed me from Jannik. And like you said, the physical's getting better and the mental's getting better too. The biggest question now is, can he perform in a Grand Slam? But this is a guy, Jannik has now, I think, reached the 2nd round of a major, the 4th round of a major twice. Every single major he's made the 4th round twice, and made his first semifinal at Wimbledon. And I'm expecting 2024 he's going to make some big strides at the majors as well.
I would agree with that. I think, he's made so many adjustments. So again, I think, anybody takes something away from this, like patience in your game, being willing to make adjustments, willing to take risk. I think Darren Cahill's been such a phenomenal addition to his coaching team. I'm not surprised that that's made such a big improvement for him. And obviously it takes time to create a relationship, a winning relationship. Alcaraz has been with his coach a little bit longer. So I think, as that amalgamates and they bed in a little bit more together, I think we'll continue to see an improvement. I think he's up to number 4 now in the live rankings. So he's putting himself in a really fantastic position to have a great draw at one of the upcoming slams. And, I think for him, it's going to be across 5 sets, another level up in terms of the physicality. So he's going to want to make sure he addresses that in the off season. Obviously, Australia is a hot place to go to. So we'd want to make sure that his physical preparation there is really strong. But I think in terms of, his weapons and his game, like what we're working with, he's proven now that he can beat the top players. Or he can get really close to it. So I think the one that still has kind of the bigger question mark is Djokovic for him. He's gotten so close with him, but just not quite, presenting a big enough challenge for Djokovic. But I think that's still to come. And I would expect 2024 to see him push on, increase that title haul, a couple more Masters 1000 titles, which he finally got under his belt this year. I'm not sure we'll see him lift a slam trophy, although It's way too early to say. We don't know about draws, injuries, and all sorts of other things. So question marks there, and I would hesitate to try to predict that. But certainly he's getting closer and closer. And I think of the young talent that we've got now, he's certainly going to be a name that I think we would rely on to be a slam winner in the future.
Yeah, well said. I would also not predict a major in 2024 just because that is such a big jump from having just one major semifinal to all of a sudden now being able to go all the way in 5 sets, especially when we still have Novak and Carlos at their best. So I think that is a little bit of a big leap. But I think that my goal or a goal for Jannik in 2024 should be that for him to at least reach a final. And I think that would be a big thing for Sinner. And I think that
where do you think he could get to a final? Which one?
Which final? Wimbledon. I think Wimbledon.
Ooh,
I think grass courts suit him well. Yeah.
Okay.
He went 2 sets up on Novak in 21. He got in 22.
So close.
Got to the semifinals this year. So I kind of think that. Would you agree Wimbledon as well would be his best shot? What do you think?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think Wimbledon's kind of the one where grass to me means you need the most experience. Alcaraz kind of defied that this year with a win that I think surprised most people. Like going to the grass season, I don't think most people picked Alcaraz. And when you look at the matchup, you would also think, maybe Medvedev would be a little better on grass. But with the improvements that Sinner has made to his serve and the way that he's serving, if he continues that into a slam tournament and on a fast surface like grass, then I would start to, give Sinner the edge over someone like Medvedev, who I think on grass just stands way too far back and makes his life way too difficult. So I think Wimbledon's a good shout. I think my backup shout would be the US Open. He's had a couple good runs there before. And I don't think clay is his surface, to be honest with you, at least not yet. So to me, it would be one of the hard courts. But yeah, Wimbledon or US Open would probably be my pick as well.
Yeah, that certainly makes sense. I mean, U.S. Open, obviously, his run to the quarterfinals last year kind of comes to mind with an epic showdown versus Carlos. And I think that's definitely worthy of a shout. I think at any major, I could at least imagine him doing so in the future. It just needs some more improvements at the best of 5 format. But I think that with time he could do it. So we'll see what all happens. But then, that's kind of Vienna this week. Tsitsipas and Medvedev had another showdown from their quite interesting rivalry. And Medvedev won in straight sets, but Tsitsipas had a better week. He played a great match against Medvedev, I felt like, and reached the semifinals. Yeah. So I felt like Steph had a bit of a better week. And also Rublev had a good week as well. Do you want to quickly touch on either Rublev or Tsitsipas and kind of I
mean, Tsitsipas had a much more respectable score and respectable week. So good for him. I mean, I still don't think it's good enough by his standards and where he should be at this point in the season, but he's putting himself in the best position possible to try to qualify for finals. That's what you need to do, and he's on his way. So kudos to him for having a better week and sort of picking himself up a little bit. Rublev, he is good on indoor hard courts. I think he has a game that's better on indoor hard courts than others. For example, I don't think there's much of a difference with Zverev between indoor and outdoor hard courts. It's pretty similar with him because of his kind of defensive natured game. But that was an impressive win over Zverev, who's had a good, post US Open's run as well and made, kind of a good go at some of these indoor tournaments. And Rublev was also, close to Sinner in the final. And I think, we keep talking about it, but Rublev's on-court demeanor to me is his biggest barrier to success right now. I don't think, Rublev necessarily has the versatility that I would want to see from someone that I think kind of consistently challenges for big titles. But he's certainly someone that if he has a big week can win more titles than he is winning. And as you mentioned, he was in a winning position in that first set versus Sinner, and he was very much in the game in the second set too. And I think he at one point he smashed his knee with his racket. It looked like it was bleeding and immediately bruised. And you just sort of think, oh God, that hurts. We all know how much it hurts to smack yourself in the knee or the shin with your racket.
Right.
That can't be doing you any good. And it's to me, at least, kind of past the point of funny and is just crossing over into I am concerned about your on-court behavior. And he's such a nice guy. I wish he would treat himself a little better than he does. And I think it's something that's not funny anymore. He needs to do something about it.
Yeah. It's just useless negativity. I think that's kind of obstructing him in matches. That's really not good. I mean, I understand why Rublev was frustrated at that point, but you don't need to. It's not healthy, first of all, to take it out on yourself in that way. Also, physically, if you do that a lot, then that can get in the way of matches. But mostly mentally, it's just not good. And also, I think we spoke on another podcast, but it's just not good for the fan experience. They don't want to see you doing that. It's no good. So I mean, Rublev's been performing well, and it's good to see Tsitsipas performing better as well. I think well.
Overall, a great tournament. I had a lot of fun watching Vienna. As we mentioned last week, it was a very strong draw here. A lot of big names. A really fun 500 format in that way because you get a lot of really good matches very quickly packed into a week. They also had, I think, record number of fans attending the tournament this week with over 74,000 people coming to watch the tennis. Again, I think testament to how good of a job men's tennis is doing right now in terms of fan interest. And post-COVID, people are really turning up to watch. So I think that's exciting to see as well.
Yeah, no, it's cool for sure. And then, that was one 500 we had this week. And then Basel as well with FA beating Hurkacz in the final 7-6, 7-6. Hurkacz coming off his Shanghai title. It was 2 tiebreakers for FA. Hurkacz really was quite physically exhausted, especially in that second set. He had a long match with Humbert in the semifinal. The third set tiebreak, which we've kind of come to know with Hurkacz. He's played over 60 tiebreakers this year, which is ridiculous. He's nearing on 1,000 aces for the season, just because probably because he's just had a chance to hit so many aces and he's played so much tennis. But I think there have only been 3 or 4 seasons where a guy has hit over 1,000 aces, a couple from Isner, one from Karlovic, I think. So anyway, Hurkacz has been Hurkacz been doing the Hurkacz thing, but he's been winning as well, which is great. But Felix finally back to playing great. I mean, it's so good to see from FA finally back in his form. I mean, his serve was amazing this week. He won 93% of first serve points in that final, but also he was just way more consistent from the back of the court. He looked way more confident, I don't know. He looked happier on the court. He was able to do more what he wanted to do. And I don't know, just the errors weren't coming. The backhand wasn't just hitting horrendous errors when I was seeing it. He really looked confident, stepping into the court, hitting with the forehand, coming into the net as well. So I'm really happy to see Felix at his best because he is a talented player who it feels like he's been around forever, but he's only 23 years old, just turned 23 in August. So that's something that I think is very impressive from Felix. And happy to see it. I'm happy to see it. He defended a title, something that Medvedev has still been unable to do in his career. He still didn't defend in Vienna, where he had such a good chance against Jannik, but Felix defended Basel. He seems to pick up around this part of the season. The question is whether he's going to pick up also on the grass courts and then also kind of earlier in the season next year. But I think that's something that I'm quite happy with Felix. What do you think about kind of Basel and Felix winning that?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think, huge win for him. Very happy for him. Deserves it. He needed to defend that title. Without those points, he would have fallen outside of the top 20 for the first time in a number of years for him. That really would have been capped off a very poor season. So I think I don't think that this run or this performance was his best. I think he has maybe this week turned a little bit of a corner. I think he also got a big get out of jail free card against Shevchenko, who was serving for the match and just got a little bit tight and nervous there. And he was able to capitalize. And of course, yeah, you got to play every point until the match is done. That's how tennis works. So you earn everything along the way. But you look back at his draw, it wasn't particularly challenging, but yeah, it wasn't a top 10 performance to me. I still think that Felix can get back inside the top 10. He certainly has the game, the movement, the physicality to be a top 10 player. He's underperformed this year. It's been disappointing. He knows it. Whether that's injury, whether that's mental, whether that's coaching, he should take this with a lot of positivity and be really willing to do a lot of work in the off season and start 2024 with a clean slate. I think he could really benefit from a Sinner type of mentality in terms of like, hey, like I'm willing to like reconstruct things a little bit. Because I think sometimes when you're someone like Felix or Sinner who has a lot of success early on and young in your career, you might want or be tempted to maintain some bad habits in order to keep winning in the now, rather than having a lot of foresight for the future. And I think in a way that's kind of what's caught up to him. I think he needs to be willing to rebuild some things. As you say, he served a lot better, but we haven't seen that consistently throughout the season. So, would love to see him kind of analyze, like, why is that the case? Like, see if there's adjustments he needs to be making. I never know with players, like, what they really do to work on their mental game, but clearly that's something that he needs to do. And yeah, he just needs to find some of that, consistency and resilience. So this week is good signs that he's turning the corner and putting himself in a better situation going into 2024. But I didn't see enough evidence for me to really be like, Felix is back from this win. I feel happy for him there.
I understand that. That's perfectly reasonable. I mean, I think a lot of people think, this guy's winning, that means that he's back. This guy's losing, that means that he's that it's like people think very kind of minimally about everything. But yeah, I would say that Felix definitely has ways to improve technically. Like you said, Yannick is constantly working on the technical side of things. I think Felix definitely needs to do that, especially on the back end side. I think that there's so much that he can improve. I mean, even on the return of serve, especially when it's not coming to him with a lot of pace, I think he works better when he's actually working with a lot of pace on the return and just in general and on the ground game. So I think that that's something that Felix needs to work on. In general, there's definitely a lot of ways to improve. And also when he's having an off day, to figure it out, because that's something that marks a top 10 player, that marks a top 5 player. And when it's getting away from him, it just doesn't really work out. So I think that those are ways that Felix can improve, and to not let the errors just keep coming and coming, but find a way to buckle down and make his game more solid. Because he reminds me a bit of Rune, to be honest. Rune and Felix kind of remind me of each other. If I could make a comparison between two young players, because they're both two big servers and they have potential in the rest of their game, which often I feel like they have so much to work with. The actual shot choice and is actually the biggest weakness for them. Like they and the errors can start piling up because they're not sure exactly what to do at any given point. So I think that that's something that they both could work on. And also, like I said, when they're having an off day, to just kind of try to figure it out a bit better. But in the same way, I am high on Felix, and I think that hopefully he builds upon this win, because if he does, then that's when he can we can feel confident about him. He might show up and we might talk about him in a way where it's like, oh, okay, Felix is now consistently playing top 20 level, top 15. At this point, it's just a title after a subpar season.
Yeah. I think, we'll see where he goes in 2024. I think your comparison with Rune is a pretty good one. Both have really big serving weapons, good from the ground. Just like sometimes poor shot selection, just confused, like, what are you trying to do? Just like that, that mental focus and kind of ability to work out, what do I need to go do from plan A to plan B? So, speaking of Rune, he had a much better week. he's really been struggling to put back-to-back wins together since Wimbledon, really. We've talked about the injury he's had. Now it looks like he's teamed up with Boris Becker as his coach, at least until the end of the season for now, and then they'll see how things go. I think that's an interesting appointment. Obviously, Becker's worked with Djokovic in the past, and I don't think Becker is a technical coach. Like, I don't think he's someone that's like a Darren Cahill that's going to sit down and help you try and reinvent your serve or, make really like technical adjustments to what you're doing. And, when Becker was coaching Djokovic, he kind of admitted that, and we didn't really see many technical adjustments in Djokovic's game. What we did see was huge mental adjustments, going from somebody that kind of had a losing record in Grand Slam finals to being someone that had an absurd winning record in Grand Slam finals. So I think, Becker adds a mental coaching element to Rune's team. That's a very interesting one. And sometimes it's kind of the question of like, is it someone's technical abilities that wins them tennis matches or big tournaments, or is it their mentality and their ability to just kind of grind through things? And it depends from player to player as to what the outcome there really is. But to me, I'm not sure if it's a little premature with Rune, because I think he still has a lot technically to work on. I think some of his shot selection really just is poor. Like, his strategy is poor. He's not kind of really willing to hang in matches and kind of grind things out. He just sometimes goes for shots where you're just like, give yourself a chance to win the point. Like, going for things that just aren't worth going for. Having said that, though, perhaps Boris can help him with that side of the approach and making better mental selections and having a better mental playbook to go from. And then maybe the technical errors wouldn't be so glaring. Like, maybe we find those errors glaring because he's going for things that he shouldn't be going for. And so perhaps that's what Becker's going to be able to help with, and kind of, maintain his focus throughout a match and give him a little bit of a mental edge that he maybe seems to have lost a little since last year. When you're young and you're on tour and you're a rookie, I think you have nothing to lose. Like, I think we'll see maybe a similar thing with Shelton next year of like, okay, now's your like second year and you've got a good ranking and you've won a few things, and now people expect a little bit more of you. Like, maybe that's kind of where Rune is right now. And we'll see if that partnership lasts. Obviously very different to the Mouratoglou partnership that he had this year. And in a way, that partnership didn't really yield that much positive, because we haven't seen so many good results from Rune this year. So I'm intrigued, to say the least. I don't know, what will come of it, but what are your thoughts? What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think I think it is a good shout to say that it's his kind of second season coming out. I think like Casper, for example, is having his kind of season like that. At the moment. And I think what you say about Becker is true. I mean, when Ivan Isevic came into Djokovic's camp, automatically Ivan Isevic seemed like he was working on very specific things of Djokovic's game, even if it wasn't huge adjustments, just like small adjustments, just perfecting everything. And also, obviously, the serve got a lot better.
Yeah, serve and volley too. Like, we'd never seen him play like that before. And Ivan Isevic has changed so much of that, I feel like.
Yeah, especially to counter, I guess, Medvedev's game as well, who can struggle against serving and volleying and taking time away from his kind of returning his game. I think that's going to be interesting how Rune turns up from here. And I think the question of mentality versus technicality is an interesting one, and what it takes to win matches. Obviously, it's a big mix of both. But I think in tennis at the highest level, I think people do underestimate mentality. I think Djokovic had a great quote. Everybody can hit forehands. Everybody can hit backhands. It's the mental side that actually matters the most. And it's true. It's like people underestimate what it takes, and it's hard to really explain if you don't play tennis, because it's like, well, I mean, everybody's made it to this point. Everybody cares. Everybody's putting in maximum effort. I mean, what does mentality have to do with it? But that's kind of, in my opinion, underestimating how small the margins in tennis are, And I mean, you see it all the time with a ball either hitting the net or going just over, or a ball hitting the line or just missing. And it's that kind of thing where the mentality and pushing yourself just that extra little bit really comes into play. And also, it's a game of momentum. It's a game of rhythm. You have to have good serving rhythm. You have to tennis is a mental game just as much as it is anything else. And I think that the mental side at the top of the game is most important. Obviously, when you're playing juniors, if you can hit a forehand perfectly, then shout out, you'll probably win the tournament. But if you're at the highest level, the mental side is actually the most important. And it might seem trivial, but I think there's a lot of things in life where the mental side is actually more important than we give it credit for. And tennis just accentuates that, which I think actually brings a lot of people to the sport and puts eyes on the sport. But I think that Rune can improve on the mental side. Hopefully that's what Becker does. Becker obviously worked with what we were saying. He worked with Novak, and I feel like some people have compared Rune and Djokovic. I mean, the comparisons kind of come naturally. But I think that Becker will be an interesting. I'm interested to see how it all turns out at the end of the day. And I remember saying earlier in the season, though, when a lot of people when Sinner lost in the second round of the French Open to Altmaier and Rune lost in the quarterfinals, people are saying, "Oh, well, Rune is better than Sinner." I was like, "Well, just give it time, because Rune has 60% win percentage. Sinner has 70% win percentage. Yeah, Rune might have a good run, but Sinner is consistent and working, and his mentality is obvious, and his talent. And I'm very high on Rune as well, but he really needs to button it down. So we'll see how he does that, and also how he can improve on the mental aspect as well."
Yeah, look, I think Rune is he just feels like he's still a little bit younger than Sinner and Alcaraz. Even if there's not that much in it age-wise, it feels like mentally he's just a little younger. I think Sinner and Alcaraz for that age really have exemplary mentality, and that's not something that everybody at 21, 22, 23 has. So I think, again, like, I cut some people slack. Like, we expect people to be finished and ready products, like Alcaraz, winning the US Open and Wimbledon at such a young age. Like, that's not the norm. The norm is that players start to kind of, peak and really hit their stride around 24, 25, 26, especially given that careers are getting longer and longer. So I think, with Rune, I hope to see an adjustment in his mentality, kind of a willingness, similar to how we talked about Auger-Aliassime in terms of comparison to Sinner, like a willingness to do a little bit more learning, to do a bit more tinkering and kind of adjust things. But in general, I agree with you. Like, I think we underestimate mentality at the top of the game. As you say, everybody can hit a good forehand and hit a good backhand. It's like, can you turn up and do this under pressure and in big moments? And maybe Becker is the person for that. He certainly has a financial incentive to do well, because the man is broke.
Yeah.
So post his prison sentence.
Yeah, he just got out of jail.
Yeah.
I don't know about all that. Yeah.
Produced a documentary with Apple TV, and now is coaching Rune. Yeah, he's trying to save that mansion that got bought out from or taken from him. So yeah, I'm just joking, right. But you know what I mean. So. But yeah, some other things to take out of Basel this week. Taylor Fritz had a first round exit. He did win today in Paris against Baez, but it looked like he had picked up some sort of injury. You could hear him talking about, it was giving me trouble last week. So I'm not entirely sure kind of what's going on with him, but maybe that gives us a clue as to kind of what's been going on with some of these tight, losses in these tournaments over the last couple of weeks. And it also just in general looked like nobody was really up for making huge strides in Basel this week in terms of securing qualification, which is kind of what we talked about. It's all going to come down to Paris. But yeah, Fritz, Rude, Dimonor, all those names, just needed a couple wins to try to get qualification under their belt, and none of them took advantage of that opportunity. So a little bit disappointing there, but kudos again to Felix for coming through. We certainly wouldn't have picked him as a winner last week. I wouldn't have. So he did a really good job to come through. And yeah, some of the others didn't take advantage of that opportunity, and he capitalized on it. So yeah, that's kind of Basel for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now in the race left, there are 14 players. 5 have qualified, so 9 players still left who are fighting for it. Fritz, Rude, Hurkacz. They're kind of the big names fighting for the spot that Rune has. Zverev and Tsitsipas haven't technically qualified yet, but they're basically in it. It's basically fighting for that 8th spot. And Paul, Demonor, Kachanov can make it, but Rune has to lose his next match against Team, or Wawrinka nearly knocked him out in Paris last year, but and then he has to win. Paul, and Demonor have to win the whole tournament. So it really seems like it's more so a race between Fritz, Ruud, Hurkacz, and Rune for that 8th spot.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think that's more realistic.
Yeah, because Paul and Demonor have to. Everybody else has to win the title, and that's just probably not going to happen.
No.
So,
crazier things have happened, but no, I would not put money on that.
Yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. I think Hurkacz, it depends on kind of the physical aspect, if he's physically ready for Paris, but I think that he's looking good. He's looking in form, and I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of steals it at the end of the season. That should be interesting to see. And then also we had the Elite Trophy in the WTA, which for anybody who doesn't know, is the number 9 through 20 in the world battling it out. Like we were saying last week, it's kind of weird that I think a lot of people didn't even know what was going on, even though it's one of the bigger tournaments. I mean, Haddad Maia won the title, and she climbed up from number 19 in the world to number 11 in the world, one below her career high of number 10. And a lot of people didn't even know about the tournament, but that is a massive jump for Beatrice Haddad Maia. And it was an amazing final. I got to catch most of the final between Zheng and Haddad Maia. And it was straight set, 7-6, 7-6. But I think the first set went like 13-11 in the tiebreaker, and the second set was topsy-turvy too. Very good from both sides. Haddad Maia was amazing. She was hitting forehand winners all over the place. Haddad Maia with both players very aggressive game style, but that made it so much fun to watch. Zheng has more winners than her opponents almost every match. In this match, she had 30 winners. I saw Haddad Maia had 42. So there you go, 12 more. So Haddad Maia was playing unbelievable. And Zheng showed up too, and she's at a number 14 career high ranking, which is good too. She would have cracked the top 10 had she won the final. But very, very impressive stuff from Haddad Maia, and she probably could have served better. Zheng got a lot of chances in her service games, but the rest of her aggressive game was working out amazingly. And like I said, pulled out a very close first set tiebreaker, and the mental side of Haddad Maia is amazing. And I saw that earlier in the year when she got to the quarterfinals of the French with some incredible comebacks, just match after match and throughout the season. So I feel like Haddad Maia winning this is kind of deserved for a player who probably has underperformed throughout the season. So I was happy to see it.
Yeah, she's an ultra resilient player and a really awesome person. For those of you who don't know, she hasn't really played over the last month. I think this happened in Cancun. She had an accident where the shower door broke and some shards of glass got into her hands, so she wasn't able to play. So this was the first tournament she's played since then. And I mean, maybe she's gotten a little bit of rest in the legs. I think sometimes with tennis, a week off, 10 days, 2 weeks, even 3 weeks off at this point in the season can really be a difference maker in terms of gas in the tank to go on and, do well in tournaments. Depends on the type of player you are, but I think Bia is such a hard worker. I'm sure she didn't, just because she wasn't able really to do much with a racket, I'm sure she was still physically doing a lot off of the court to stay ready for the tournament. And Zheng has been on a really impressive run post US Open. She had a great US Open. Obviously, she did great at the Asian Games. She picked up a 250 title or a 500 title in China as well. Obviously, she split with her coach, Wim Fissett, so we kind of didn't know what to expect from her over the last couple of weeks. And she's come out swinging. She stuck to her game plan. She's playing well. And, I think both her and Haddad Maia are names that I'm really excited to see close to the top 10 for the women's game. I think that both Zheng is very young and Haddad Maia is a little bit older. That they're kind of different characters, but I think they bring a lot to the women's game, and their storylines are also really compelling. So really happy to see kind of those names coming out from that Elite Trophy, where there's big names competing that we're used to kind of seeing, the Krejcikovas, the Ostapenkos, the Kazakinas kind of being the ones that are winning this type of tournament. So super happy for Bia to get the title there. And she also got the doubles title as well. So she did a good job finishing off her season. She thinks she won the doubles with Kudermetova. So yeah, she really deserves it, and she played a great final. And as you say, blistering forehand. The number of winners is ridiculous. So awesome.
Yeah, all around good stuff. I think they both bring such an aggressive game style, and I'm not one of these people who say, oh, they look better, so they're better, they hit fast, or whatever. But it's just great to have these kind of players at the top of the game, and I think Zheng especially. I mean, she's so young and she's absolutely killing it. Both are great athletes as well. Zheng's athleticism impresses me time and time again, and like I said, it's a very close match. I know it's straight sets, but this to me was one of the more enjoyable matches I saw this year, and was very good stuff from both, and great shot making all around. So great tournaments. A kind of a bit of an appetizer for the WTA finals, I would say, that are coming up as well. And we can go to the upcoming WTA finals. The top 8 women's players playing, and Mukova withdrew, so Sakkari is in, which I think a lot of people are like, should she be playing this event? But I mean, she's in, and that's kind of what it is. She got dismantled by Sabalenka though in her first round yesterday, 6-0, 6-1. Sabalenka had triple match point to actually double bagel, which is always a bit what would you say? A bit demeaning.
Offensive.
So offensive, yeah. There you go. So, but anyway, Sabalenka's the world number 1. I don't know who it would have been if it wasn't for Sakkari, but yeah, it was sad because Mukova was clearly we would have had the clear top 8 best players in the world this year. 7 of them had made major finals. Pegula has won a couple of Masters and been incredible. So I think that that it would have been great. But anyway, Sakkari is the player who we got. And also we had a Pegula-Rybakina match as well. If you want to get into that match as well, Pegula got the win over Rybakina. Pegula, she can play a bit aggressive and hit through the court, but it's kind of Rybakina with a bit of aggressive game style versus Pegula. But Rybakina really wasn't at her best. What do you think of that match?
Yeah, I mean, this is now the second WTA finals that Pegula's playing. I think last year in Fort Worth, she didn't even get a win. So this is good start for her. In general, tricky conditions in Cancun. Windy. There was a big storm in Mexico last week that brought a lot of rain and bad weather to the region. And in general, it is pretty windy there at the moment, especially during that match. Also, tricky conditions in terms of the court. For those of you who haven't kind of been fully paying attention, that court did not get fully finalized until Saturday. So when the players arrived last Wednesday, they had been practicing on the 2 available hotel courts with 1 stringer on site. Just shows you how organized this tournament is. And they only got a 45-minute period to practice on the match court before their match yesterday. So Rybakina was very unhappy with the court conditions. Those sentiments were echoed by other players like Sabalenka and Jabeur in terms of them being like, this surface is not good enough. Rybakina blamed a lot of long rallies on the type of court. She said that there were a lot of shanks going on because of the way that the ball was bouncing is pretty uneven. So, we never want to hear those types of remarks coming out, from top players, especially when we're talking about an elite trophy final like this with your top 8 players in the world. We want to see them playing their best tennis because all of the conditions bode well for that. So I think overall that in itself is pretty disappointing. Sabalenka said she felt unsafe moving on the surface. That to me is a really huge concern. But clearly did well enough against Sakkari to nearly double bagel her. So who knows kind of really how true it is or how much people just want to vent their frustrations. Obviously, Rybakina lost. We didn't hear the same comments from Pegula. So you just never really know exactly what those types of comments mean. But I think, given that Sabalenka won in the way that she did and she was still making those types of remarks, It's concerning. But they're going to have to deal with it. They're going to have to adjust. I think Swiatek had a couple good quotes of like, the winner this week is going to be the person who's most versatile, most willing to adjust, because we know, they can't change the surface now. They're not changing the venue now. They can't do anything about the wind. So somebody's just going to have to be willing to hunker down, do the work and get it done, and, not focus on the negative for the next couple of days. All the complaining can be done after the fact, in my opinion. So, they got to hunker down. Rybakina did not play her best tennis. And I think what was impressive to me about Pegula, and in general about her season, is she's super clinical once she wins the first set. I don't remember the exact number, but it's something like 40-5, like that type of ratio.
Wow. Yeah.
It's really strong. So she was down 5-3 in that first set and then won the next 4 games to come back and win it 7-5. I think, from there, she's clearly able, to kind of push on and win matches. Even if she doesn't win that second set, she's more than likely to win the match. So for her, I think when you're watching her, just keep an eye out on that first set performance. I think it tends to bode in the right direction for her if she's able to win it.
Yeah. Well, and also she's such a mentally solid, consistent player so I don't know, she'll almost always win a set if she's playing a match because she's just so consistently good. And I think it takes that kind of mental strength, like you're saying. One thing that you can say about the surface is that's the same for everybody. The conditions are the same for everybody. So
court.
So it's one court, just 2 players on court. So it just whoever is kind of the strongest and wants it the most and is most adaptable, they're going to be the one that kind of pulls through.
Yeah.
And that's a good stat, 40-5 for Pegula. I think that often it's the player who kind of the players who can get a lead and still win the match, kind of separates kind of the amazing players from the best. And that's why Pegula has shown that she's the best, and that she can, like you said, hunker down and really still get the win. But the WTA Finals just started, so we'll kind of have more thoughts on it coming into next week. But I'm kind of have a bad feeling about Sakkari. I don't know if she's going to get a match this week.
Yeah. Quickly on that, I think also like the whole Mukova thing is frustrating because I think for me, at least as a fan, it's been hard for me to get super excited about Mukova because she is constantly injured. It's just such a shame that that's kind of the story with her, because she is such a talent and she's so much fun to watch, and she really deserved her accolades this year, and she deserved getting to the WTA finals. But just time and time again, like with her, it's injury, and I'm just really concerned about her ability to really maintain this level in 2024, to go on and win a slam or win a lot of Masters tournaments. I mean, it's never a question of her talent, but I just have so many question marks about her ability to stay fit.
Do you think that, so it's mostly like just like a health concern, you think, more than just like a game concern?
Yeah, because I mean, I think she certainly has the game to play well, but when you're consistently someone that deals with injuries, I think it also gets into your head a little bit of like, oh, this might hurt. Is it this? Is it that? I think Vondrousova's kind of had a similar thing going on with her wrist. And it makes it sometimes hard to kind of make decisions on like, do I need to pull out? Can I play? Like, am I good? Am I not? And she's had like, this just isn't, it's not something that's recent with her either. Like, she's had injuries following her since juniors, where she's just kind of had these consistently every season, not good injuries either. Like ones that, are concerning for the longevity of her career as a whole. And I think she's much better than like an Annette Kontaveit, but I am concerned that that's that type of trajectory where we could see her as someone that's like an early retirement or just never fulfills her potential because she can't seem to get her body right and healthy for a season. It's a shame.
That's fair. Yeah, hopefully that isn't the case. I think whenever I watch her play, she seems like she's got the mental together for sure. But you have to have every single thing together, and that's it's unfortunate with a player like that. We'll see how the WTA finals kind of pan out. it will be interesting to see. Sabalenka, obviously the world number one. There are ways that Swiatek can overtake her and become the world number one, but I think in every single case, Swiatek at least has to make the final. So, and it also depends. It all depends on Sabalenka and how she does. But it's always exciting when there's a race for number one also happening while kind of the finals tournament is going on. So that kind of adds a little bit of a spice to it. I don't know if we're going to get the same thing on the ATP side. It depends on how well Alcaraz does in Paris. So, but yeah, and then speaking of Paris. Djokovic is back, first time since the U.S. Open. He's playing on a limited schedule, which I love personally. I think I think at this point he's just got to listen to his body and just work for the biggest events. He said, "I care about the Davis Cup. I'm going to play for my team. I'd love to finish the year on world number one. I want to play the majors next year." He's focusing on the big tournaments. He knows when he's got to take a break. I think it's been nearly 2 months since the U.S. Open, just under, I think. So. But anyway, Djokovic is back, and Rune's in his quarter. That would be a rematch of the final last year where Rune got the best of him. Also, Fritz is in that same quarter as well.
Yeah.
Artur Fils is a name there as well. He could be a bit of a dark horse too in that quarter, just because Fritz isn't really in good health. There's a few good names there. Also, Sinner has a good quarter as well. Alcaraz Zverev could be a quarterfinal. So there's some different interesting stuff that's going on. I'm quite interested to see how Medvedev does after losing that heartbreaker final to Sinner. I'd be curious to see how he does. He's won Paris before. Actually, since 2005, only one person has won this title more than once. Djokovic. He's won it 6 times. There's been 12 other champions, one-time champions. Which is pretty crazy. But Medvedev is one of those. He's trying to make it 2. But yeah, there you go. So I'm curious to see how Paris kind of pans out. What are you thinking about it? I have my eyes on Kachanov. I'd be interested to see how he does, because he's kind of been in a good momentum, and he had a great season to start the year, Indian Wells semifinal, and then also got to 2 major semifinals in a row, and he just won a title a few weeks ago as well, or a month ago. So I'm interested to see how he does. Who do you have your kind of eye on here?
Yeah, I mean, a really good draw, a really good format for a Masters tournament as well. I mean, we're getting right into the meat of things early on. I think, Medvedev could have a little bit of a tricky quarter. He's got a couple names in there that, have been streaky players, but are players that are capable of beating him. Bublik took out Tiafoe earlier today. He won a title last week. If he's on with his serve, he's dangerous. But I actually think the name that's in Medvedev's quarter that's one to look out for is Korda. Korda's kind of the only one that's gotten, multiple wins against Medvedev kind of in that bracket this year. So I think he could be a name that could cause some upsets. Obviously, Zverev is in Alcaraz's quarter, so that could be an interesting one. I think Sinner has a reasonable draw, but he could kind of have another rematch against Rublev in his quarter. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think it's kind of what we've been talking about. Everything in terms of ATP Finals qualification is going to come down to this week, and it's a strong tournament where players have to be on from the first match, and it's hard to call this time of year, as you say. Multiple one-time winners of this tournament. Nobody's really taken advantage of an opportunity to qualify as of yet. Who's going to do well under that pressure? Hard to know. For those who are wondering, this court surface, it plays a little bit slower. The ball is a little bit of a low bounce on this type of court, so I don't think it is going to be Medvedev's favorite surface, even though he's won there before. So a lot of interesting things to look out for. To me, I think Djokovic is probably the favorite, but hard to know how easy it is for him to kind of just turn it on after 6 weeks off. I don't know, but he's done that time and time again, so I don't doubt him anymore.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely fair. Yeah, I think Alcaraz has a good draw. I mean, I'm looking at his draw. I mean, he has Tsitsipas quarterfinal,
Yeah.
Rude potentially in the semis, although also Medvedev is there on his half. So
Yeah.
that could be an issue. We have a couple of third rounds between um, two players who are in the race right now, like Fritz and Rune, could
Yeah.
play in the first round, and then also I think Hurkacz and Paul can. I'd have to look into it, but there are a couple here. So yeah, all around it's an interesting one. This is the last kind of jump for players to really make a leap in their rankings. Obviously, the race and the rankings kind of become the same thing, but they're trying to get to Turin. And yeah, we'll see how it all kind of pans out. And you're saying it's slower. Are you saying it's slower this year or slower just in general compared to other kind of indoor tournaments?
Compared to the other indoor tournaments we've had over the last couple of weeks, it's a little bit slower than those surfaces, especially like for indoor. But it's still hardcore. It's not totally slow. It's just not as fast as the previous tournaments have been.
Right. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I was wondering if they slowed it down at all, but that makes sense. I remember Turin last year played like ridiculously fast on the on their indoors. I wonder if they'll kind of stay the same thing. I almost hope not, because it was like almost every other set became a tiebreaker, especially with how many big servers there are now. But yeah, anyway, it should be a good tournament. There's some crazy first rounds. Well, earlier today, Murray lost a heartbreaker to De Minaur again, which I want to rip my heart out. You did not want to be a part of the QualityShot tennis chat that we have, because we were just completely we were going at it, because whenever Murray loses, the chat goes crazy. So that's what it is.
He's in a winning position again.
Yes.
I don't know what is his problem against De Minaur, because for those who don't know, Murray is trying to be seeded at the Australian Open. That's his motivation right now.
Yeah.
I don't know why. Why is De Minaur such a pain in the ass for him to play against? He can't get it done. Twice now he's served for it. Just can't win. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, De Minaur is like, it kind of makes sense that De Minaur would be a nightmare, because Murray, he doesn't play a defensive game, but he plays a game that's a bit more grindy, a bit more from the back of the court, and De Minaur just runs everything down, and such a good returner. And his serve, Murray's serve isn't at its best at the moment, but yeah, he just runs everything down, and Murray can't really hit through him. And nowadays his forehand is really kind of unreliable, even when he's not going for a lot. So he can't really control the court with it at all. And it's just like the errors start piling up. And that happened from up 5-2. What's crazy is the exact same situation that I had in Beijing, where he was 5-2 up and also had a match point. So it's just, I don't know if it's like history repeating. It's like the 2010
brackets he broke after that.
Yeah, I've never seen Murray like that, but I couldn't blame the guy. I wanted to blame it's just, you can't blame a guy for being that upset, but geez, I don't know. I need Murray to fix something up before next season, because it's just so sad. I want to see the guy his second week at a major. I want to see the guy play Novak again before he goes out, but he's just not really doing it. I wonder if there's yeah, that's true. That's true. And then, but yeah, some other things, Paris today. Tommy Paul, one of the contenders in the race right now. Actually, as we film this, he's in a third set breaker with Gasquet. So by the end of the podcast, we'll have the full update on that, I think.
Bear in mind, he got bageled in that first set.
He lost 6, though. I didn't want to mention it, but there you go. So yeah, I don't know what's going on over there. But yeah, those are a few things. First round only just started. Dimitrov and Medvedev are going to have a rematch from Vienna as well. Dimitrov won in 3 sets over Musetti. But yeah, some stuff going on. We'll have more on Paris next week's podcast. And let's get into the power rankings. And for the weekly power rankings, so a few changes in here, because we did have the 2 500 tournaments, and we also had the WTA Elite Trophy. So a few really big tournaments with some points on the line. At my number 1 spot, I've had Djokovic unmoving for forever, but Jannik just kind of showed up so impressively this week. I just was like, you know what? This is the guy who's the number 1 in the power. Like, I'm most excited about Sinner at the moment. So I'm going to give it to him for number 1. I would have been fine either way, but I'm doing that. So, okay, Novak, prove to me again why you should be number 1 in Paris. And then Jannik will drop down. But Jannik's beaten Medvedev like two of his last 3 events. He beat Alcaraz in straight sets. It's a guy whose game looks incredible. Like it could test anybody in the world right now. And this is a guy who's proving that too. He's had the most top 5 victories on the season now, 7 top 5 victories. He's 7-6 versus top 5 guys in his last 13 matches. He was 0-13 in his first 13. So like, yeah, like, okay, I'm gonna give it to Yannick. Yannick at the top spot for that. And then kind of further down, Medvedev keeps a spot. Alcaraz, Rublev, Medvedev goes up a spot. Alcaraz and Rublev kind of go down. Medvedev, listen, he got close against Sinner in that final, but I just felt like he should go down. Hurkacz got to the final once again in Basel, so he's doing well. And Dimitrov, Zverev, they're still performing well. Dimitrov lost a really close match to Medvedev, but he looks like he's in top 10 level at the moment for me. Like if he keeps it up, I think he's going to be he could be top 10 if he keeps up this kind of level and win percentage, because he's only losing to top guys. And then, I didn't know who to put for this 10th spot, but I decided to put Gael in here. I put Gael Monfils because he just won in Stockholm. And he was injured against Tiafoe a little bit, and Tiafoe won the match, but I just wanted to give the nod to Monfils because he's been playing well. So that's kind of how I filled it out. Do you want to go over either my picks or your ATP picks, whatever you kind of want to do?
Yeah, I mean, look, we're pretty much on par. I have quarter over Monfils, just because I think maybe a little bit. Who knows? Maybe a little bit more of a reliable pick, but then again, Gael at home in France is always a tricky opponent. I had some movement in that 5, 6, 7 spot with Hurkacz moving up a little bit. I think he's again, doing himself a lot of justice with the performances he's been putting in over the last couple of weeks, and a huge serving year, really strong performances this year, and is putting himself in a good position to finish inside the top 10 in the live ranking. So happy for him there. I think Rublev is having a solid, hardcore indoor swing, as we talked about. I think Zverev is still someone that's, a big contender for these hardcore tournaments. And then, look, I think Shelton post Tokyo, that's a tough ask to get from Tokyo to Vienna within 72 hours in play. I actually think he really played a good match against Sinner, given probably how much, how tired he was. Sinner pretty much had a week to prep, and Shelton had no time. I really think he showed up in that match and put on a great performance. And you could even tell in that second set, he kind of knew that was going to be a tough ask for him to come back and win, but he didn't go away. He still put in 100% effort and still, really did a good job. So I wanted to keep him inside my top 10 as well. I just thought some of the other performances were stronger. He also lost today as well. Little culture anecdote. He's also complaining about the balls changing, saying that he has some arm pain now since it's the 3rd week in a row he's playing with different balls. So hard to know. Obviously he's had a couple deep runs, so a little bit tired, but that's the movement I've had on the ATP side.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I felt like Shelton, he did lose early, but he lost to Yannick, who had an incredible week, and he was playing very high level anyway, so I felt like he should still stay pretty high up there. I almost wanted to move Grigor up, but just because I think he's playing amazing at the moment. He also lost a close one to Medvedev, who also reached the final last week. Medvedev and Sinner are just on another level from the other guys at the moment, I feel like, outside of Djokovic and Alcaraz. I feel like Djokovic and Alcaraz have separated themselves into one tier. Medvedev and Sinner have separated themselves into another tier. And at one point, I felt like you could have said Medvedev is above Sinner quite clearly. But I feel like at this point, you kind of have to put them in the same tier, whether you want to put one or above the other or not. I think the answer to that will come next year, not this year, who's kind of better right now. So I think
the 4 of them are a cut above the rest in themselves. Like, as you say, it's like tier 1, tier 2. And I think both of those tiers are like a good level above, with the people knocking on the door, like Hurkacz, Zverev, Dimitrov, Rublev, like those ones kind of being a little harder to separate. I would agree with you on that assessment for sure.
Yeah, I would say tier 1, Djokovic, Alcaraz, tier 2, Sinner, and also Medvedev. And then I would say like a few tiers below Zverev, Rublev, and then I would say tier 4 has like 30 ATP players in it, and you can't really separate any from the others. Because I was struggling to put a number 10. I was quite happy when I was like, oh, shout out Gael Monfils, whatever. But like I was happy to do it because I'm quite a fan of Gael and I'm high on him. But I just it was almost impossible to pick. So anyway, it's basically the top 5 that I was quite happy with because Rublev's consistent. Out and then all of the Alcaraz, Medvedev, Djokovic Sinner. But yeah, I'm quite confident that this is going to change by the end of Paris and especially at the end of Turin. So that'll be exciting how that changes. And then the WTA, the top 5 has kind of stayed the same. For me, I put Zheng up at 6. Below Sakari, I put we kind of had Zheng and Sakari kind of at 6 and 7. I put her above, honestly, just because of Sakari's performance versus Sabalenka yesterday, which was just so tough to watch, honestly, for me. So that's what it was for me. And then Haddad Maia comes in at 8th. Quite happy with that. I mean, Haddad Maia hasn't been performing incredibly up to this week, but she's still been pretty great, pretty up there. And this week she was just amazing. So I need to give Haddad Maia the spot, especially winning a big tournament, which pretty much guarantees you somewhere into my power rankings. And then I feel like we had similar spots. But then if you want to close out, kind of talk about kind of your spots as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, not many of the big players played this week, so kind of hard to know. I think I can see why you put Zheng ahead of Sakari. I could easily agree with that. Jabeur is still in mine over Kudermetova just because I think Jabor's earned it over the season. And then I put Krejcikova back in my mix because I think she had a good run at the WTA Finals, the Elite Trophy that was played this past week. So I think she's kind of capped off her post-US Open season with a reasonable go at it, has picked up a title and has had her name in contention and a couple others. So she finished off the year pretty strong. And we'll see how things will play out at the WTA Finals. Obviously, as you said, the number 1 spot is up for grabs for Swiatek. And I think I have very difficult time predicting because these groups are pretty tough. But I think it'll be an interesting week, and I don't know who to call for a winner, to be honest.
Yeah, I think it's not our job. We're gonna just wait and see for the next one. And then I said, there you go. I predicted South. Oh no, I predicted Swiatek. Yeah, so we can kind of go with that. All right. Yeah. So yeah, we'll see what happens. WTA Finals. We'll see what happens in Paris, and that'll be on next week's podcast. Thank you guys for watching this one. I've been Anthony Hirsch.
And I'm Eliza Wastcoat.
See you guys at the next one. Don't forget to like the video as well. Don't forget to subscribe. See you guys at the next podcast.
Bye, guys.